Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into a topic that's gotten about as messy as a dropped bowl of laksa the West Philippine Sea. Specifically, why China's claims of ownership over it are about as watertight as a colander made of tissue paper. Now you might be thinking, Ben, why should we care about some distant sea? Well, for starters, it's not just sea, it's a vital shipping route, home to a wealth of resources and frankly, the epicenter of enough geopolitical tension to make a plate of chili crab look downright relaxing. So buckle up, because we're about to navigate the choppy waters of international law, territorial disputes, and why China's 9-line claim is about as welcome as a durian in a dentist's office. Let's get into it. Alright, let's start with the rule book, shall we? The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, is basically the Geneva Convention for the ocean. It's got more articles than a furniture store, but the gist is this: coastal states get to call dibs on the resources within 200 nautical miles of their shores. That's their Exclusive Economic Zone, or EEZ. Think of it like this: it's your backyard barbecue. You get to decide who swims in your pool and who snags the last burger. You can invite your neighbors, sure, but you wouldn't expect them to just rock up and start rearranging your patio furniture, would you? And that's where things get a bit sticky with China. They've drawn this, frankly, ludicrous 9-line that claims pretty much the entire South China Sea, including areas that are clearly within the EEZs of other countries like the Philippines. It's like inviting yourself to your neighbor's barbecue, claiming their entire property as your own, and then demanding they cook you a veggie burger because, you're trying to cut back on red meat. Spoiler alert, the international community isn't buying it. UNCLOS is pretty clear. You can't just draw a line on a map and call dibs on an entire sea, especially when it overlaps with everyone else's backyards. Now, the Philippines isn't just some random guest at the barbecue. They've been living in this neighborhood for centuries, and their claim to the West Philippine Sea is backed by both geography and history. It's like finding your great-great-grandpappy's name on the deed to the house. You've got a pretty strong claim to being there. We're talking about fishing grounds that have sustained Filipinos for generations, potential oil and gas reserves that could power their future, and a whole lot of, hey, that's my seashell collection, energy. But here's the thing. China's historical claims to the area are about as convincing as a pigeon claiming ownership of a statue because, it pooped on it once. Remember that rulebook we talked about, UNCLOS? Well, in 2016, an international tribunal basically took one look at China's 9-line claim and said, yeah, that's not how any of this works. They ruled that China's claims were about as valid as a $3 bill, and that many of the features they were claiming didn't even qualify for an EEZ. It was a massive blow to China's position, and they reacted about as well as you'd expect, by throwing a tantrum, ignoring the ruling, and continuing to build artificial islands in the disputed waters like a kid who just lost a game of Monopoly. But the ruling was a huge win for the Philippines and for international law. It showed that even big countries can't just bully their way into getting what they want, and that the rules apply to everyone, even if you happen to manufacture most of the world's plastic flamingos. Chapter 4. Here's the thing about this whole South China Sea kerfuffle: it's not just a two-person standoff, it's more like a family reunion gone wrong with Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei and Taiwan all having their own claims in the region. Imagine trying to have a rational conversation about who gets the last shrimp spring roll with your drunk uncle shouting in the background. It's a recipe for chaos. And that's exactly what China doesn't want you to see, that their aggressive actions are putting the entire region on edge. They want to frame this as a bilateral dispute with the Philippines, but the reality is, it affects everyone in the neighborhood. Let's not forget, the South China Sea isn't just some random body of water. It's a major shipping route. We're talking trillions of dollars in trade flowing through it every year. It's the maritime equivalent of a superhighway, and China trying to claim it as their own is like setting up a toll booth and demanding everyone pay up for using their road. The international community, quite rightly, is having none of it. Freedom of navigation is a fundamental principle, and letting one country control such a vital waterway is about as appealing as a mouthful of seawater. Now, China might be used to throwing its weight around, but its actions in the South China Sea have kicked up a diplomatic storm. Countries in the region are understandably nervous, and even global players like the United States and Australia are getting involved, conducting freedom of navigation operations and bolstering alliances. It's a classic case of, you break it, you bought it, except China broke international law, and now everyone else is stuck dealing with the shattered pieces. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, has been trying to play peacemaker in this whole mess. They're like the designated drivers of the South China Sea, trying to herd everyone home safely before things get even more out of hand. They've been pushing for a code of conduct to manage the disputes, which is basically a set of rules for how everyone should behave in the maritime sandbox. But negotiating with China is like trying to nail jelly to a wall. It's slippery, frustrating, and you're never quite sure if you're making any progress. So, to answer our initial question, no, China does not own the West Philippine Sea. Their claims are about as legitimate as a fake Rolex, and the international community is calling them out on it. Look, this is a complex issue with no easy answers. But one thing is clear. Ignoring international law and throwing your weight around is a recipe for disaster. The South China Sea is a shared resource, and finding a peaceful and equitable solution is in everyone's best interest. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the choppy waters of geopolitics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more. And be sure to let us know in the comments what you think. Is China in the right? Is the West overreacting? Until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and try not to start any international incidents.